Berlin finance professor Jörg Rocholl took the situation in Greece and extrapolated what it would mean if it were happening in Germany. The same level of cuts as Greece is making would require Germany to save 62 billion euros every year.
If you have to reduce the budget annually by 62 billion, 2/3 could be made from spending cuts and the rest could come from increased revenue. So 40 billion less in spending and about 20 billion in additional revenue.
Where would it come from? First, the additional revenue. How can a government raise money? One method is to raise the value-added tax. A hike of 2%, which is what's been implemented in Greece, would bring in about 14 billion euros in Germany. But it would make consumer spending more expensive as well. For the average household, it would mean about 34 euros more a month.
Shopping is already kind of expensive, and if the value-added tax were raised, I'd have to consider even more carefully which things I'd buy.
Most consumers would probably accept a 2% increase. An additional 14 billion euros in revenue would flow into state coffers.
But you have to keep in mind that when value-added tax is too high, it would weaken domestic purchasing power. And a weakening of purchasing power means that less overall could be purchased. So that in the end, tax revenue actually goes down and the shadow economy grows larger. And illegal work would increase, for example.
Another source of state revenue? Income taxes. Wages could be taxed more heavily. An increase of 3% would pull in an additional 6 billion euros.
Another important aspect, though, is that what's really owed the state needs to be actually paid. Tax evasion is a major factor. It has caused significant problems in Greece right now. Officially in Greece, only about 5,000 taxpayers declare annual income of more than 100,000 euros.
In Germany, Rocholl says most upper-income earners pay high tax rates, but that wouldn't be enough to help out in a massive austerity program. In addition to revenue, the financial analyst also took a look at possible spending cuts. The government would need to save 40 billion euros. One item on the cut list might be Germany's autobahns. Potential savings from stopping construction and maintenance, 13 billion euros.
Cuts in spending on infrastructure are always painful. Infrastructure is the prerequisite for economic growth and for the ability to collect future tax revenue.
Major cuts could also be made in the German Defense Ministry. 16 billion euros could be saved by cutting the military budget in half. Slashing spending on the Autobahns and the Bundeswehr would be painful, but would total savings of about 29 billion euros. And despite the unpopularity of cuts in social spending, as in Greece, it's something the German government would probably not be able to avoid. One option in Germany? Radically slashing the benefits for the long-term unemployed by half would save 13 billion euros. That would be enough to reach the goal of 62 billion euros. But the need to save billions is not just theoretical in Germany. Public debt is now at some 1.7 trillion euros. And since the financial crisis began, additional expenditures have been added.
The bailout of the banks, for example, and all the financial support that's now being drawn on for the euro crisis, that could lead to more borrowing. But it's still not as high as in Greece right now.
And if it is someday, then at least we've identified a few places where money could be saved.